Now, pictures of a disabled man being dragged from his wheelchair by police officers during the protests in London on tuition fees have emerged online. Now, these pictures appear to show Jody McIntyre, 20-year-old political activist and blogger who suffers from cerebral palsy, being pulled out of his wheelchair and dragged across the road to the pavement. Well, the Metropolitan Police have released this statement on that incident, saying, in connection with the incident shown to you shown on YouTube of a tuition fees protester in a wheelchair, the Metropolitan Police confirm that the man involved, Jody McIntyre, has not launched an official complaint. The issue has been referred by the Metropolitan Police to the Directorate of Professional Standards, and the Met Police say they will contact Jody McIntyre directly. So that is the statement from the police that we've received. And we can speak to Jody McIntyre now, who's in our Westminster studio. Evening to you.
Good evening.
Could you just explain what happened to you?
Well, during the demonstration, I was attacked by and pulled out of my wheelchair by the police on 2 occasions. The footage you have just shown is of the second incident. One of the policemen who had dragged me down the road in the first incident obviously recognised me, came running over, pushed me out of my wheelchair onto the road and then dragged me across the road.
OK, the police say you haven't made any kind of complaint, so why not?
I haven't made a complaint yet, but I'm in contact with a lawyer and I will be doing so.
Well, it's been a few days since this happened. Why haven't you complained before?
Because I wanted to consider my options before taking that step.
There's a suggestion that you were rolling towards the police in your wheelchair. Is that true?
I think to justify a police officer pulling a disabled person out of a wheelchair and dragging them across a concrete road is quite ridiculous, and I'm surprised that you've just tried to do so.
So that's not true? You were not wheeling yourself towards the police?
Well, I can't physically use my wheelchair myself. My brother was pushing me. I think it's quite obvious from the footage that I was 100% not a threat to anyone.
In the Observer newspaper, you were described as a cyber radical, and you were quoted as saying that you want to build a revolutionary movement, and that can only happen through direct action on the streets. Do you classify yourself as a revolutionary?
I don't classify myself as anything, but I think we all have a right to fight against what the government are trying to do. They're trying to create a tier education system whereby only the rich will be able to afford tier. That is something that I think we should all be fighting against.
Now, the police have said that they have referred this incident to the Directorate of Professional. What's your reaction to that?
I don't have a reaction, but I will be making a complaint in the near future. I would say that it's very important not to see this as an isolated incident. This is the police's role at demonstrations, to incite and provoke violence. They've done it in the past and they're continuing to do it now. I am not the real victim here. The real victims are the students like Alfie Meadows, who was in hospital within an inch of his life after a policeman struck him on the head with a truncheon, and he needed emergency brain surgery. Now imagine if it was Prince Charles or Camilla or a police officer who had been within an inch of their life.
But I have to say, I was in Parliament Square covering that demonstration, and I saw protesters throwing lumps of rock at the police, throwing missiles, various missiles at the police. Were you throwing anything at all at the police during that day?
I wasn't throwing anything at the police during that day or during any action. But what is clear is that the media are now trying to distract the public from the real issue is the cuts that the government are making.
Were you harmed in any way in that incident with the police on that day?
Well, not in that. If the incident that's being shown, there was also another incident around 45 minutes earlier when a police officer struck me with a baton on my, and yes, that did cause some injury.
And why then do you think, if you're saying the police picked on you twice, why do you think they did?
I have no idea. I mean, to make one suggestion, I think in the second incident at least, I think there's a clear element of trying to provoke protesters into violence. Personally, I see myself as equal to anyone else, but I do understand that I could be perceived as more vulnerable. So I think there was an element of trying to provoke violence from others.
Shout anything provocative or throw anything that would have induced the police to do that to you?
Do you really think a person with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair can pose a threat to a police officer who is armed with weapons?
But you do say that you're a revolutionary.
That's a word. That's not a physical action that I've taken against a police officer that you're quoting from a website. But I'm asking you, do you think I could have in any way posed a physical threat from the seat of my wheelchair to an army of police officers armed with weapons? This whole line of argument is absolutely ludicrous because you're blaming the victims of violence for that violence. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the way the BBC report on the Palestinian conflict.
When are you going to make your complaint to the police?
We'll be making my complaint very shortly, in the near future.
OK, Jody McIntyre, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for talking to us this evening.
Thank you.